Okay, we have the PLS-5, the Preschool Language Scales 5th edition. On the front of the record form here, it has different spots for the different subtests and their scores. So there is 2 different subtests, the auditory comprehension and expressive communication. The test is laid out where the auditory side is all on this side, and then the expressive is all over on this side. So you do take them individually and score them individually, and then at the end you do come together to get your total language score.
So we're just going to show the expressive communication part this time. So you would find what age we're at, and we're going to say the client is 3 years old. So we go to number 26, and we have to have a basal of 3 consecutive scores of 1. So we have to make sure they have 3 right in a row. If not, we'll go to the previous page and then make sure they get 3 in a row before we move on. And then we continue testing from that point forward. The ceiling is 6 consecutive scores of 0. And then for each question, we do correct or incorrect and add the number of correct and incorrect responses at the end. So we'll go to question number 26.
So for 26, like you said, it's starting at age 3, so that's why we're starting there. So the instructions for this one is just the clinician will point to each picture and say, look at this picture, what is this? So we'll start. What is this? A ball. What is this? Baby. What is this? Bird. And what is this? Cookie. What is this? Doggy. What is this? Shoe. What is this? Balloon. What is this? Spoon. What is this? Kitty. What is this? Apple. All right, so that's it for number 26. You score them either a 1 or a 0. Each question on here gives you, if to get a score of 1, how many you have to get correct. So for this one, to get a score of 1, it would be 5 correct, and she got more than 5, so she would get a score of 1 for that one. Now, number 27, the next question is looking at using words more often than gestures to communicate. So for this question, there are materials you need to use. This one calls for toys and objects that the child has previously shown an interest in. So you can use a parent or a caregiver to also help with this because they would know more about what the child is interested in and would keep their attention for that. So they're looking for things to score on, and they would be like uses neither words nor gestures, uses gestures only, uses gestures more often than words to communicate, uses gestures about as often as words, or uses words more often than gestures to communicate. So for a score to get a 1, you would have to use words more often than gestures to communicate. So once you're finished with the test or you reach your 6 consecutive zeros, it would be time to score the test. So what you do on the front of the page, again, on the record form is where you would do all your scores. So we just did the expressive communication test. You would take the number, the last expressive communication item administered, so it would be number 27, so you would write 27, and then you would put minus the number of zeros scored. So it would be 27 minus however many they got wrong. And that's going to give you your raw score for the expressive communication section. And you do the same thing for auditory comprehension. Now, once you have your 2 raw scores over here, to get a total language score, you would just add the 2 of them up, and that's going to give you a standard score total. Now, to go ahead and get more of a standard score for each thing specifically, you would go to the examiner's guide to get your scores. To find your standard score, you would look at your raw score that you got, again, individually, and this is going to give you pretty much laid out right here for you your standard scores, your standard score confidence interval, your percentile rank, and then percentile ranks for standard score confidence interval values. And then there is a page for age equivalency. So what that's going to do is take your previous scores that you just came up with and going to give you an age equivalency to what the child is testing at. And you can, again, do that for each section. And then to come up with your discrepancy comparisons, that's also in the book where you can look up your scores. So you take the auditory comprehension score, the standard score, minus the standard score of the expressive communication, and that's going to give you your difference. You also can find your critical value, which will give you the score of if there's significant difference between the two. So basically that part is just trying to figure out if they scored similarly in both of the subtests or if there was a big difference. And then over here, you have your standard score scale, so it'll give you more of a visual if the child is in the average range, above average, or below average.